Admiral Jiho Kim stood before the massive window of his flagship, watching the stars drift past like distant memories. The ship was called Vengeance of Soul, and it was the largest vessel in humanity's great fleet. Behind him, the bridge hummed, with quiet activity as his crew worked at their stations. 3,000 years. That was how long humans had been away from home. Jiho touched the glass with his fingertips. Somewhere out there, far beyond the endless black, was Earth, the planet where his ancestors had lived and died, the world that aliens had burned to ash while his people fled into the darkness. "Admiral," called Dr. Nari Park from her station. "The long-range sensors are picking up something interesting." Jiho turned away from the window. Nari was the ship's chief scientist, a woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. She had spent her whole life studying the aliens who destroyed Earth. "The creatures called themselves the Void Dominion. What have you found?" Jiho asked. Nari's fingers danced across her control panel. A holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed star charts and data streams that only she could fully understand. "I've been monitoring Dominion communications for months," she said. "Their encryption is old and weak. We've learned so much since we left Earth." Jiho nodded. "When humans first fled Earth, they were desperate refugees with damaged ships and broken hearts. But 3,000 years in the cold void had changed them. They had grown stronger, smarter, and angrier. The Dominion thinks we're extinct," Nari continued. "They stopped looking for human survivors centuries ago. But that's not the interesting part." She touched another control, and the display changed. Now it showed images of a blue and green world. "Earth. They're talking about Earth again," Nari said quietly. "The planet is healing." Jiho felt his heart skip a beat. "Healing? The radiation is gone. The atmosphere is clearing. Life is returning to the surface." Nari's voice grew excited. "Jiho, our home might be livable again." For a moment, the bridge fell silent, except for the low hum of the ship's engines. Every person there was thinking the same thing. They were all children of refugees, grandchildren of those who had fled the burning Earth. None of them had ever seen their homeworld, but they all carried its memory in their hearts. Captain Minho Lee stepped forward from his position near the weapons console. He was younger than Jiho, with the lean build of a soldier and scars on his hands from countless training sessions. "Admiral," Minho said, "if Earth is healing and the aliens think we're dead, then we have an advantage," Jiho finished. "They won't see us coming." Engineer Sola Yoon looked up from her station. She was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 30 years old. But she understood their ships better than anyone. "Sir, our fleet is ready for anything. We've built ships the Dominion could never imagine." Jiho walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of their massive fleet. 300 ships, each one more advanced than anything the aliens had ever built. Humanity had learned hard lessons in their long exile. "Show me the historical records," Jiho said. The air around them filled with images from the past, videos, and photos from the day Earth died. Jiho had seen them 1,000 times, but they never got easier to watch. The year had been 2024. Earth was a peaceful world then, just beginning to reach for the stars. Humans had no idea that aliens existed, let alone that some of them were hostile. The Void Dominion had arrived without warning. Their ships blocked out the sun as they took positions around Earth. When human leaders tried to communicate, the aliens responded with fire. Cities burned. Oceans boiled. Billions of people died in the first day alone. Some humans managed to escape in hastily built ships. They fled into deep space, carrying whatever they could save of human civilization. Most of the refugees died during those first terrible years, but some survived long enough to find new homes among distant stars. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, establishing hidden colonies on forgotten worlds. They never forgot what had been done to them. They raised their children on stories of Earth and promises of return. For 3,000 years they had grown stronger. They had learned to build better ships, better weapons, better technology. They had studied the Dominion, learning their weaknesses and planning for revenge. The time has come. Jiho said, his voice carrying to every corner of the bridge. Send a message to all ships in the fleet. Tell them we're going home. Across the bridge, his officers straightened with excitement. Communications officer Do-hyun Kang began typing rapidly at his station, sending coded messages to the other ships. Admiral, Nari said, there's something else you should know. The Dominion has built mining stations around Earth. They're stripping the planet for resources. Jiho's hands clenched into fists. They destroyed our world and now they're picking its bones clean. Not for much longer, Minho said grimly. We've waited 3,000 years for this moment. The main display changed to show a tactical overview of human space. Their colonies were scattered across dozens of star systems, each one hidden and protected. But now, for the first time since the Great Exodus, they were bringing their fleets together. Sola Yoon pulled up engineering reports on her screen. Sir, our ships are operating at peak efficiency. The new gravity weapons are ready for combat. Testing. Jiho smiled coldly. Gravity weapons were a human invention, born from desperation and refined through centuries of careful research. The Dominion had never seen anything like them. How long until we reach the Sol system? Jiho asked. At maximum speed, 18 months, the navigation officer replied. Then we have 18 months to prepare, Jiho said. I want every ship, every weapon, every soldier ready for what's coming. The bridge erupted in quiet activity as orders were passed down through the fleet. After 3,000 years of waiting, humanity was finally going home. But as Jiho stood before the great window again, watching the stars, he thought about the cost of their long exile. Entire generations had lived and died without ever seeing Earth. Families had been broken, cultures lost, languages forgotten. The Dominion would pay for all of it. Dr. Nari Park joined him at the window. Jiho, she said quietly, what if Earth isn't what we remember? What if we're strangers to our own world now? Then we'll learn to love it again, Jiho replied. It's still our home. Nothing can change that. Behind them, Captain Minho Lee was already planning the assault. His tactical display showed possible attack patterns, troop deployments, and strike zones. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. The Dominion grew lazy, Minho said to his aide. They think they rule the galaxy without challenge. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place on every ship. Human soldiers cleaned their weapons and checked their armor. Engineers ran diagnostics on weapon systems that had never been tested in real combat. Pilots practiced maneuvers in simulation chambers. But it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming something that had been stolen from them. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was the symbol of everything they had lost and everything they hoped to regain. Sola Yoon was working late in the engineering section when she received a message from her grandmother. The old woman lived on a colony world far from the front lines, but she had been born on Earth. She was one of the last survivors who remembered the blue skies and green fields of humanity's homeworld. Bring her home, child, the message said. Bring our beautiful Earth home to us. Sola wiped tears from her eyes and went back to work. The gravity weapons needed to be perfect. Every human life in the fleet depended on their technology working flawlessly when the time came. Meanwhile, Communication Officer Do-hyun Kang was monitoring Dominion frequencies. The aliens had no idea that humans had learned to break their codes long ago. Every message they sent was being read by human intelligence officers. They're planning something, Do-hyun reported to Admiral Jiho. I'm seeing increased traffic between their mining stations and their home systems. Let them plan, Jiho said. It won't matter once we arrive. As the months passed, the human fleet moved through space like a storm gathering strength. Ships that had been scattered across the galaxy came together in a massive formation. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. The closer they got to Earth, the more excited the crews became. But the excitement was mixed with anger and grief. Everyone had lost ancestors to the Dominion. Everyone had stories of families torn apart during the Great Exodus. 3 months before they reached Earth, Jiho called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room filled with the images of hundreds of human officers, each commanding their own vessel. "We're almost home," Jiho said. "In 3 months, we'll see Earth again. But I need you all to remember something. This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice for every human who died. It's about reclaiming our rightful place in the universe." Captain Yunishin, the youngest fleet commander, spoke up. "Admiral, what do we do with the Dominion forces we capture?" "That depends on them," Jiho replied. "If they surrender and cooperate, they'll be treated according to human laws. If they resist..." He left the sentence unfinished, but everyone understood. The meeting continued for hours as they planned every detail of the coming assault. Nothing could be left to chance. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Jiho Kim stood on the bridge of the Vengeance of Sol, staring at the tactical display that showed their destination. After 3,000 years, they were home. But the Sol system looked different now. Where Earth once hung like a blue jewel, there was now a gray and brown sphere surrounded by alien structures. Massive mining platforms orbited the planet like metal vultures, and Dominion ships moved between them in regular patterns. "My God," whispered Dr. Nari Park, "what have they done to her?" Earth looked sick. The oceans that had once been bright blue were now a dull gray color. The continents were brown and scarred, covered with what looked like strip mines and industrial complexes. But even from this distance, Jiho could see patches of green starting to return in some areas. "She's still alive," he said quietly. "Hurt, but alive." Scout leader Taemin Choi approached the Admiral's station. He was a small, quiet man who specialized in stealth operations. His job was to get close to enemy positions without being detected. "Admiral, request permission to launch reconnaissance probes," Taemin said. "We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Granted," Jiho replied, "but keep them hidden. I don't want the Dominion to know we're here until we're ready." Across the bridge, Tactical Officer Hana Jung was already analyzing the alien defenses. She was a brilliant strategist who could spot weaknesses that others missed. Her screen showed dozens of Dominion ships and stations. "Sir, their formation is sloppy," Hana reported. "They're not expecting any threats. Most of their ships are cargo vessels and mining equipment, not warships." Communications expert Doyun Kang looked up from his station. "I'm intercepting their communications now. They're speaking in old Dominion dialects that haven't changed in centuries. No military alerts, no warnings. They have no idea we exist." Pilot Yunishin was running final checks on her fighter squadron. She was one of the best pilots in the human fleet, known for her aggressive flying style and perfect mission record. Her fighters were sleek, fast ships that could outmaneuver anything the Dominion had built. "Admiral," Yuna said, "my squadrons are ready to launch at your command. We can have eyes on Earth in 6 hours." "Do it," Jiho ordered. "But stay invisible. I want to know everything about their defenses before we make our move." The stealth probes launched silently from the human ships. They were tiny, nearly undetectable craft that could slip past most sensor systems. Taemin Choi monitored their progress on his screen as they approached Earth. What they found was both heartbreaking and encouraging. The Dominion had built massive mining facilities all over Earth's surface. They were stripping the planet for rare metals and minerals, leaving huge scars in the ground. But between the mining sites, life was returning. Plants were growing in the abandoned areas, and the atmosphere was slowly clearing. "They've been treating Earth like a resource mine," Nari said angrily. "No respect for the ecology, no care for the environment. They're just taking what they want and leaving destruction behind." But the probes found something else. Hidden beneath, the alien structures covered by 3,000 years of debris and growth were the ruins of human cities. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, all still there, waiting to be reclaimed. "Look at this," Taemin said, highlighting an area on his screen. Probe 7 found something in the Seoul ruins. The image showed a section of the old city where human buildings were still partially intact. The Dominion had built their mining equipment right on top of them, but they hadn't bothered to clear away the human structures completely. "There," Nari pointed at the screen. "That's the old city center. My grandfather told me stories about those buildings. For many of the crew, this was the first time they had ever seen their ancestral home. Some of them began to cry. Others stood in angry silence, watching their heritage being destroyed by alien machinery. Jiho felt a cold rage building in his chest. The Dominion hadn't just destroyed Earth. They were desecrating it, using it as a source of raw materials while showing no respect for the billions of humans who had lived and died there. "Admiral," Doyun called out, "I'm picking up something strange in the Dominion communications." "What kind of strange?" "They're talking about keeping the mining schedules. They seem to be under pressure from their home government to increase production." "But there's something else." Doyun frowned at his screen. "They're also discussing security protocols for the Forbidden Zones." "Forbidden Zones?" Hana Jung looked up from her tactical display. "What could be forbidden to them on Earth?" Dr. Nari Park's eyes widened. "The deep bunkers. Some human settlements went underground during the attack. If any of them survived." "You think there might be humans still on Earth?" Jiho asked. "It's possible," Nari said. "The deepest bunkers were designed to last for centuries. If they managed to seal themselves in before the radiation got too bad." The thought sent shockwaves through the bridge crew. The idea that some humans might have survived on Earth all this time was almost too much to hope for. Taemin Choi was studying the probe data more carefully. "Admiral, I'm seeing some interesting patterns in the Dominion patrol routes. They avoid certain areas completely, underground facilities mostly." "Can you get a probe into one of those areas?" Jiho asked. "Already working on it, sir." While Taemin worked his magic with the stealth probes, Yuna Shin was leading her fighter squadron on a careful reconnaissance mission. Her ship stayed hidden behind asteroids and space debris, but they got close enough to study the Dominion defenses in detail. "These ships are ancient," she reported over the radio. "Their technology is at least 500 years old. I don't think they've upgraded their military since they conquered Earth." That made sense to Jiho. The Dominion had grown complacent. They ruled a large part of the galaxy and hadn't faced any serious threats in centuries. Why would they need to improve their weapons? Meanwhile, humans had spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of war. Every ship in their fleet was equipped with weapons and defenses that were centuries ahead of anything the Dominion possessed. "Admiral," Taemin called out excitedly. "Probe 12 just found something incredible." The main screen filled with images from deep beneath the ruins of Seoul. The probe had found its way into an underground complex that had been sealed for thousands of years, and it was still intact. "It's a data storage facility," Nari breathed. "Look at the size of it. They must have downloaded the entire human internet before the attack." The images showed massive computer servers, still powered by fusion reactors that had been running for 3 millennia. Everything looked clean and functional, as if it had been waiting for humans to return. "Our history," Jiho said quietly. "Everything we lost when we fled Earth. It's all still here." But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. As the probe moved deeper into the facility, it detected something that made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. "Life signs. Human life signs," Taemin confirmed. "Weak, but definitely human. There are people down there." The bridge erupted in excited chatter. After 3,000 years, there were still humans on Earth. Somehow, some way, they had survived the long night and kept the flame of humanity burning on their homeworld. "We have to get to them," Dr. Nari Park said urgently. "They might be in danger. The Dominion could discover them at any time." Jiho nodded, but he was thinking strategically. "If we move too fast, we'll blow our element of surprise. The Dominion will call for reinforcements, and this becomes a much harder fight." Captain Minho Lee stepped forward. "Admiral, let me take a small team down to the surface. We can extract the survivors and gather intelligence without alerting the main Dominion force." "Too risky," Hanajung objected. "If you're discovered, the whole operation is compromised." But Jiho was already making his decision. "Minho, you have 12 hours to get down there and back. Small team, minimal equipment, and complete stealth. If anything goes wrong, you abort and return to the fleet immediately." "Understood, sir." As Minho began selecting his team, Do-hyun Kang made another disturbing discovery in the alien communications. Admiral, the Dominion is planning something. I'm seeing increased chatter about a final harvest operation. They want to strip the remaining resources from Earth and then abandon the system. When? Jiho demanded. Soon. Maybe within the next few months. The timeline was accelerating. If the Dominion left Earth, they might take their remaining infrastructure with them. Worse, they might discover the human survivors and eliminate them to cover their tracks. Change of plans, Jiho announced. We move tomorrow. All ships, all weapons, full assault. We're taking Earth back now. The bridge crew began implementing the new orders immediately. Across the fleet, human ships powered up their weapons and prepared for battle. Fighter squadrons ran final pre-flight checks. Ground assault teams suited up in their combat armor. But before the shooting started, Min-ho Lee and his team would have their 12 hours. They would reach the surface of Earth, make contact with any surviving humans, and gather whatever intelligence they could. As the stealth shuttle carrying Min-ho's team launched toward Earth, Jiho stood at his window and watched his homeworld grow larger. Soon, very soon, the Dominion would learn that humanity had not forgotten. They would learn that some crimes could never be forgiven. 3. The attack began at dawn, Earth time. Admiral Jiho Kim watched from the bridge of the Vengeance of Seoul as his fleet dropped their stealth fields and appeared throughout the Sol system like vengeful ghosts. 300 human warships materialized from nowhere, surrounding the confused Dominion forces. All ships, this is Admiral Kim, he broadcast across the fleet. Today we take back our home. For Earth, for humanity, for 3,000 years of exile. The response was immediate and devastating. Human ships opened fire with weapons the Dominion had never seen before. Gravity cannons twisted space itself, crushing alien vessels like tin cans. Energy beams cut through Dominion armor as if it were paper. Missile volleys overwhelmed their primitive defense systems. Direct hit on the main mining platform, reported Tactical Officer Hana Jung. Their command station is gone. On the tactical display, Jiho watched as Dominion ships scattered in panic. They had been caught completely off guard. Their lazy patrol patterns and outdated sensors had failed them when they needed them most. Captain, Min-ho Lee's voice crackled over the radio from Earth's surface. Admiral, we've made contact with the survivors. There are thousands of them down here living in underground cities. They've been waiting for us to come home. Excellent work, Min-ho. Hold position and protect the civilians. We'll join you soon. Pilot. Yuna Shin was leading her fighter squadrons through the orbital battle zone. Her ships moved like deadly dancers, weaving between the larger vessels and striking at the enemy with precision. Fox Squadron, target those cargo ships, she ordered. Don't let them escape with Earth's resources. Her fighters were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Dominion had. They struck like lightning, destroying alien ships before their crews even knew they were under attack. This is too easy, called her wingman over the radio. They're not even fighting back properly. Stay focused, Yuna replied. Easy victories can turn dangerous fast if you get cocky. But the truth was, the Dominion forces were completely outmatched. Their ships had been designed for mining and cargo transport, not military combat. When they tried to fight, their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. When they tried to run, human ships were too fast to escape. Engineer Sola Yoon monitored the battle from her station, watching as her gravity weapons performed flawlessly. Admiral, all weapon systems operating at optimal efficiency. The Dominion, ships can't adapt to our technology. Jiho nodded grimly. Humanity had spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of war, while the Dominion had grown soft and lazy. They had ruled through fear and superior numbers, but they had never faced an enemy as advanced as the returning humans. Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from several Dominion ships, Madrid communications expert Do-hyun Kang reported. Tell them to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded, Jiho replied. Anyone who surrenders will be treated according to human laws. Anyone who keeps fighting will be destroyed. The message was broadcast across all Dominion frequencies. Within minutes, more alien ships began shutting down their weapons and raising white flags, but not all of them gave up so easily. Admiral, The large command ship near Earth is trying to escape, Hanajung warned. It's heading for the outer system at maximum speed. Yuna, intercept that ship, Jiho ordered. Don't let it get away. Yuna Shin's fighter squadron immediately changed course, racing after the fleeing Dominion command vessel. It was larger and more heavily armed than the other ships, probably the flagship of the local fleet. This is going to be interesting, Yuna muttered to herself as she closed the distance. The alien ship was fast for its size, but human fighters were built for speed. Yuna's squadron caught up with it near Jupiter's orbit, where the massive planet provided cover for both sides. All fighters, attack pattern Delta, Yuna commanded. Hit them from multiple angles. Don't give them time to target us. The human fighters spread out and attacked the Dominion ship from every direction. Their weapons carved through the alien armor, causing explosions and system failures throughout the vessel. But the enemy ship was fighting back. Heavy cannons fired at the small human fighters, forcing them to dodge and weave through space. Fox, 2 is hit, called one of Yuna's pilots. I'm losing power. Fox 7, cover Fox 2's retreat, Yuna ordered. Everyone else focus fire on their main engines. Let's end this. The concentrated attack from the human fighters overloaded the Dominion ship's defenses. Its engines exploded in a chain reaction that tore the vessel apart. The commander who had tried to escape would never report back to his superiors. Back near Earth, Minho Lee was leading the first human ground forces to set foot on their homeworld in 3,000 years. His soldiers moved through the ruins of Seoul, clearing out Dominion mining equipment and securing landing zones for the main invasion force. This is incredible, said one of his sergeants, looking around at the partially intact buildings. Our ancestors built all this. And we're going to rebuild it, Minho replied. Better than before. They had linked up with the human survivors from the underground cities. These people were the descendants of those who had hidden during the Psi original attack and never left Earth. They had lived in darkness for 3,000 years, keeping human culture alive while waiting for rescue. We always knew you would come back, said their leader, an elderly woman named Elder Misson. Every generation we told our children the story. Someday the people of the stars would return to Earth. Well, we're here now, Minho said, and we're never leaving again. The underground survivors had valuable intelligence about Dominion operations on Earth. They knew where the aliens had built their strongest defenses, where they stored their most valuable equipment, and where their leaders lived. There's a main command center in what used to be Beijing, Elder Misson explained. The Dominion administrators run their entire operation from there. If you can capture it, you'll control all their mining operations. Minho immediately radioed this information back to Admiral Jiho. Within hours, human assault ships were landing near the former Chinese capital, deploying troops and vehicles for a direct attack on the Dominion command center. Meanwhile, in space, the orbital battle was winding down. Most of the Dominion ships had been destroyed or captured. The mining platforms were in human hands and the space around Earth was clear of alien vessels. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion command center on Earth. Do-hyun reported. They want to negotiate. Put them through, Jiho said. The main screen filled with the image of a tall, gray-skinned alien wearing elaborate robes. He looked terrified and desperate. Human commander, the alien said in accented English. I am Administrator Kalanos of the Void Dominion. I wish to discuss terms for... There are no terms, Jiho interrupted coldly. You have exactly 1 hour to evacuate all Dominion personnel from Earth. Anyone still on the planet after that deadline will be considered a hostile occupier. But surely we can reach some arrangement, the alien pleaded. The Dominion has invested heavily in this system. We have rights. You had no right to destroy my world, Jiho said, his voice like ice. You had no right to kill billions of innocent people. You had no right to strip mine the planet where my ancestors lived. Your hour starts now. The transmission ended. Across Earth, Dominion administrators and workers began frantically evacuating their posts. Some tried to take valuable equipment with them, but human forces stopped them at every turn. Sir, some of the Dominion ground forces are refusing to leave, Hana Jung reported. They're setting up defensive positions around their main facilities. Then we remove them by force, Jiho said. All ground assault teams, you are cleared to engage any Dominion forces that resist evacuation. The final phase of the battle for Earth was short but intense. Human soldiers, equipped with advanced armor and weapons, swept through the Dominion positions like a tide of vengeance. The aliens fought back with desperation, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. Marine Commander Suho Jeon led the assault on the Beijing Command Center. His troops moved through the complex methodically, room by room, capturing alien personnel and securing valuable intelligence. We've got their main computer cores, Suho reported, and about 50 high-ranking prisoners, including their chief administrator. Excellent work, Jiho replied. Secure all data and prepare the prisoners for interrogation. As the sun set over Earth, the last Dominion resistance crumbled. Their evacuation ships fled the system in panic, carrying news of humanity's return to their distant homeworlds. But some aliens didn't escape. Hacker Kyung Lim had been working throughout the battle to break into Dominion computer systems. Her cyber attacks had disabled their communications, corrupted their data, and trapped many of their ships in Earth orbit. Admiral, I've accessed their central database, Kyung reported. You're going to want to see this. The information she had uncovered was staggering. The Dominion had detailed records of their attack on Earth 3,000 years ago. They had lists of human colonies they had destroyed, populations they had enslaved, and resources they had stolen. But most importantly, they had the locations of other human refugee settlements that they had been hunting. They've been looking for us all this time, Dr. Nari Park said as she studied the data. They knew some humans escaped, and they've been trying to find our. Captain Minho Lee knelt down and pressed his palm against the soil of Earth. It was the first time in 3,000 years that a human from the exile fleet had touched their homeworld. The dirt was dark and rich, still fertile despite decades of alien abuse. How does it feel? Asked Dr. Nari Park, standing beside him in the ruins of what had once been Seoul. Like coming home, Minho said quietly. Even though I've never been here before. Around them, human soldiers were setting up a temporary base camp in the cleared area. The Dominion mining equipment had been removed, leaving behind scarred ground and broken foundations. But underneath the damage, the bones of the great city remained. Look at this, called archaeologist Rena Bay from a nearby excavation site. She was a small woman with careful hands and an eye for detail. The subway tunnels are still intact. Most of the underground infrastructure survived. Rena had spent the last week carefully uncovering human artifacts from beneath the alien construction. Every discovery was precious, a link to the world that had been lost 3,000 years ago. Environmental engineer Junho Song was taking readings with his instruments. The radiation levels are almost back to normal, he reported. The atmosphere is clearing faster than we expected. Earth is healing itself. Life finds a way, Nari said, pointing to green shoots growing between the broken concrete. Plants, insects, even some small animals. They survived in hidden places, and now they're spreading across the planet again. It was encouraging news, but the scale of the damage was overwhelming. The Dominion had strip-mined entire continents, drained lakes and poisoned rivers. Restoring Earth to its former beauty would take decades, maybe centuries, but that wasn't stopping the human survivors who had lived underground. They emerged from their hidden cities blinking in the sunlight, ready to help rebuild the world their ancestors had known. Elder Misun, their leader, walked slowly through the Seoul ruins with a group of young people who had never seen the surface before. This is where your great-grandparents lived, she told them. This is where they worked and loved and raised their families. Some of the young survivors were crying. Others stared in wonder at the sky, which they had only seen in old pictures and videos. All of them carried small containers to collect soil from their ancestral home. We kept the old maps, Elder Misun told Minho. Every street, every building, every park. We memorized them all so that someday we could rebuild everything exactly as it was. Minho was amazed by their dedication. These people had lived in darkness for 3,000 years, but they had never given up hope. They had preserved human culture, human knowledge, and human dreams. There are more of us, Elder Misun continued. Underground cities all over the planet, We lost contact with many of them during the early years, but they're still out there, still waiting. Specialist Heron O was part of the team searching for other survivor communities. She was an expert in underground systems and hidden facilities. Her job was to find the lost settlements and bring them back into contact with the surface world. I've located 17 underground communities so far, Heron reported to Admiral Jiho Kim via radio. The largest one is under the ruins of New York. They have over 10,000 people. 10,000, Jiho repeated in amazement. All this time we thought we were the only humans left. There might be more, Heron said. Some of the deeper facilities were designed to last for thousands of years. We could be looking at 100,000 survivors or more. The news was spreading throughout the human fleet. Crews who had thought Earth was dead were learning that their homeworld had never truly been abandoned. Humans had clung to life in the deepest places, keeping the flame of civilization burning through the long night. But finding the survivors was only part of the challenge. Many of them were suspicious of the returning humans. After 3,000 years, the underground dwellers had developed their own culture and customs. Some of them weren't sure they wanted to return to the surface. They think we're aliens at first, Heron explained to Minho. Can you blame them? We arrive in ships from space wearing advanced armor, speaking languages that have changed over 3 millennia. To them, we're as foreign as the Dominion. It took time and patience to convince each community that the visitors were truly human. The breakthrough usually came when the fleet humans shared their historical records, videos and documents from Earth before the attack. The survivors recognized their own heritage in those images. Rena Bay was having her own revelations as she explored the ruins of human civilization. In a partially collapsed library in Beijing, she found books that had been printed on Earth. In the remains of a museum in London, she discovered artworks that told the story of human creativity. Every piece we find is a treasure, she told her team. These aren't just artifacts. They're proof of who we were before the Dominion destroyed our world. But the most important discovery came from deep beneath the ruins of Seoul. Rena's team had been excavating carefully around the massive data storage facility that the probes had found. Now they had access to the facility itself. It's incredible, she radioed to Admiral Jiho. This place contains the entire history of Earth, not just human history, everything. Climate data, biological records, geological surveys. It's like they tried to save the whole planet in digital form. The servers had been running continuously for 3,000 years, powered by fusion reactors that still had centuries of fuel remaining. The humans who built this facility had planned for a very long exile. Can we access the data? Jiho asked. We're working on it. The computer systems are ancient, but some of the underground survivors know how to operate them. They've been maintaining these facilities all along. As the days passed, more information emerged from the data facility. There were records of evacuation plans that had never been implemented, lists of strategic resources hidden around the planet, and detailed maps of underground installations. Most importantly, there were personal records, videos left by humans who knew they were going to die, messages for their children who might someday return to Earth. These recordings were played throughout the fleet, connecting the returning humans to their ancestors in the most direct way possible. Environmental. Engineer Junho Song was working around the clock to assess the planet's condition. His reports painted a complex picture of damage and recovery. The good news is that the planet's core systems are intact, he explained to a gathering of senior officers. The magnetic field is stable, the atmosphere is rebalancing itself, and the climate is slowly returning to normal patterns. What's the bad news? Admiral Jiho asked. The bad news is the extent of surface damage. The Dominion strip-mined about 30% of the land masses. They diverted major rivers, drained aquifers, and contaminated huge areas with industrial waste. How long to fix it? Junho considered carefully. With our current technology and the help of the survivor communities, maybe 50 years to restore basic habitability, 100 years to bring back the ecosystems, 200 years to make it as beautiful as it was before. Then we'd better get started, Jiho said. Plans were already being made throughout the fleet. Engineering teams were designing new cities, that would blend advanced technology with restored natural environments. Agricultural specialists were planning how to bring back Earth's food systems. Terraforming experts were calculating how to repair the damaged atmosphere. But there were also painful discoveries. As human teams explored the planet, they found evidence of the original attack everywhere. Cities that had been bombed into rubble. Mass graves where civilians had been buried. Monuments and museums that had been deliberately destroyed. "They didn't just kill us," Minho said grimly as he stood in the ruins of a children's hospital. "They tried to erase us. Every statue, every memorial, every trace of human culture. They wanted to make it as if we had never existed." Captain Yuna Shin was leading aerial surveys of the planet's surface. Her pilots flew over landscapes that had once been forests, cities, and farmlands. Now they were industrial wastelands covered with alien machinery. "Sir, you need to see this," she radioed to Admiral Jiho. "We found something near the ruins of Geneva." The images she transmitted showed a massive structure that had been built over the ruins of the old United Nations building. It was clearly Dominion architecture, but it was different from their usual industrial designs. This building had artistic elements, decorative features that served no practical purpose. "It's a monument," Dr. Nari Park realized. They built a monument to commemorate their victory over humanity. The discovery sparked outrage throughout the human fleet. The Dominion hadn't just conquered Earth, they had celebrated the genocide they committed. They had turned the symbol of human international cooperation into a trophy of alien supremacy. "Take it down," Admiral Jiho ordered. "Every piece of alien architecture on this planet, I want it all removed." Demolition teams began working immediately. Human engineers used controlled explosions and precision-cutting tools to dismantle the alien structures. Every piece of Dominion metal was collected and prepared for recycling into human infrastructure. But removing the alien presence was only the beginning. The real work was rebuilding human civilization on Earth, and that meant dealing with the cultural differences between the returning. 5 years had passed since the liberation of Earth. Admiral Jiho Kim, now serving as the planet's governor, stood in his office overlooking the construction site of New Sol. Where alien mining equipment had once scarred the land, gleaming towers of human design now reached toward the sky. "The atmospheric processors are working ahead of schedule," reported Dr. Nari Park, who had become the planet's chief environmental officer. "We should have Earth-normal air quality in most regions within the next 2 years." Through the window, Jiho could see the sprawling construction projects that covered the horizon. Human engineers were working alongside underground survivors to build cities that combined the best of both cultures. Advanced technology from the fleet merged with the deep ecological knowledge of those who had never left Earth. "The war crimes trials are beginning next month," said Justice Coordinator Woo Sung Nam, entering the office with a stack of data tablets. "We have over 300 Dominion prisoners, including their former administrator for this sector." Jiho nodded grimly. The captured aliens would face human justice for their crimes against Earth and its people. The trials would be broadcast across the galaxy, serving as a warning to any species that thought humanity could be easily conquered. Engineer Sola Yoon was coordinating the massive reconstruction effort from her command center in the former ruins of Tokyo. Her holographic displays showed projects on every continent, new cities rising from the ashes, forests being replanted, and rivers being cleaned and restored. "Governor, the fusion reactor network is online," she reported. "We now have enough clean energy to power the entire planet. No more dependence on fossil fuels or alien technology." The transformation of Earth was happening faster than anyone had dared to hope. Human technology, refined through 3,000 years of advancement, was healing the planet's wounds with remarkable speed. But it wasn't just technology that was making the difference. Colony leader Yunji Huang had been managing the return of human civilians from the fleet. Millions of people who had lived their entire lives on ships in distant colonies were now coming home to Earth. Each one brought skills, knowledge, and dreams of rebuilding their ancestral world. "The agriculture domes in former Australia are producing their first harvests," Yunji reported during the daily planning meeting. "The soil restoration program is working better than expected. The underground survivors had been crucial to the restoration effort. They knew which plants would grow in the damaged soil, which water sources were still clean, and which areas were safe for human habitation. Their knowledge, combined with advanced technology from the fleet, was bringing Earth back to life. Elder Misun, now serving as the Cultural Preservation Director, was working to ensure that both human populations learned from each other. "We must not lose what we learned during the exile," she said. "But we must also remember what we preserved here, on Earth." The integration hadn't always been smooth. There were conflicts between fleet humans and surface humans, disagreements about how fast to rebuild, and debates about what kind of society to create. But gradually, the two populations were becoming one people again. "Governor, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council," communications expert Do-Hyun Kang announced. "They want to send ambassadors to Earth." The Galactic Council was a confederation of alien species that claimed to maintain peace across the galaxy. They had done nothing to help humanity during the Dominion attack 3,000 years ago, but now they were eager to establish diplomatic relations with the returned humans. "Tell them they're welcome to send ambassadors," Jiho replied. "But they'll have to wait in line behind all the other species that want to talk to us." Word of humanity's return had spread throughout the galaxy. Dozens of alien civilizations were requesting meetings, trade agreements, and military alliances. Some were genuinely friendly. Others were clearly afraid of what the humans might do next. Captain Minho Lee, now commanding Earth's defense forces, was dealing with a more immediate concern. "Governor, our intelligence networks are reporting Dominion fleet movements in nearby sectors. They might be planning a counterattack." "Let them come," Jiho said coldly. "Earth is ready for them now." The planet's defenses were indeed formidable. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded Earth like a deadly crown. Ground-based missile systems could target ships anywhere in the solar system. And the human fleet, now reinforced with ships built in Earth's new shipyards, was larger and more powerful than ever. But the most significant change was happening inside human society itself. The return to Earth had awakened something in the human spirit that had been dormant during the long exile. Artists were creating works that captured both the pain of loss and the joy of homecoming. Scientists were making discoveries that combined ancient Earth knowledge with advanced technology. Musicians were composing symphonies that could be heard from the underground cities to the orbital stations. Archaeologist Rena Bay was still excavating human ruins across the planet. But now she was also overseeing the construction of new monuments. "We're building a memorial wall in New Seoul," she told Governor Jiho. "It will have the names of every human who died during the Dominion attack." The wall was massive, stretching for kilometers through the city center. But even more important were the smaller memorials being built in every human settlement, places where people could remember the dead and celebrate the living. Environmental engineer Junho Song was reporting remarkable progress in the planet's ecological recovery. "The reforestation programs are exceeding all expectations," he said. "The genetic seed banks preserved by the underground survivors are allowing us to bring back species that were thought extinct." Within a decade, Earth would have forests again. Within a generation, the oceans would be blue and clean. Within a century, the planet would be more beautiful than it had ever been. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in the underground communities themselves. After 3,000 years in hidden cities, the survivors were finally coming to the surface permanently. They brought with them technologies and techniques that the fleet humans had never imagined. They know how to grow food in soil that should be barren, Yunji Huang explained. They know how to purify water using plants and bacteria. They know how to build structures that work with the environment instead of fighting against it. The fusion of cultures was creating something new and wonderful. Children who had been born on distant worlds were learning to farm from elders who had never seen the stars. Engineers who could build faster-than-light ships were learning carpentry from craftsmen who worked with hand tools. As the months passed, the war crimes trials began in the Great Hall of New Geneva. Justice Coordinator Woo Sung-nam presided over proceedings that were broadcast across the galaxy. The charges were simple but comprehensive: genocide, planetary destruction, and crimes against sapient life. The Dominion prisoners tried various defenses. Some claimed they were following orders. Others argued that humans were an inferior species that deserved to be conquered. A few attempted to justify their actions as necessary for galactic peace. None of their arguments convinced the human judges or the alien observers who attended the trials. The evidence was overwhelming, preserved in the Dominion's own records and in the scars they had left on Earth. This court finds the defendants guilty on all charges, Wusong announced during the final session. The sentence is exile to the prison world of Kepler 442b, where they will spend the rest of their lives helping to restore the ecosystems they destroyed on other worlds. The trials established important precedents for how humanity would deal with hostile aliens in the future. Justice would be served, but it would be proportional and constructive rather than purely punitive. Meanwhile, the transformation of Earth continued at an accelerating pace. New cities rose from the ruins of the old ones, but they were designed to work with nature rather than against it. Vertical farms fed the growing population while using minimal land. Fusion reactors provided unlimited clean energy. Atmospheric processors cleared the air while generating useful materials. But the most remarkable change was in humanity itself. The experience of exile and return had forged the species into something stronger and more unified than it had ever been before. Differences in race, nationality, and culture remained, but they were celebrated rather than used as sources of conflict. We learned something important during our 3,000 years away from home, Governor Jiho said during a speech marking the 5th anniversary of liberation. We learned that being human isn't about where you're born or what you look like. It's about how you treat others, how you face challenges, and how you never give up hope. The speech was broadcast not just to Earth, but to every human settlement across the galaxy. Some colonies chose to return to Earth, while others decided to remain among the stars. Both choices were respected and supported as Jiho finished his speech and looked out over the crowd gathered in New Seoul's Central Plaza. He saw representatives from dozens of alien species. Some had come to offer friendship and trade. Others had come to seek forgiveness for their inaction during humanity's darkest hour. All of them had come to witness the resurrection of Earth. "Sir," communications expert Do Hyun Kang said, approaching with the latest intelligence.